A boy is reading the story of a demon lord and a hero. In the story, hero wins the duel, and the boy wishes to be like this hero. The scene shifts to the city of Fajit, located in the southern region of the Alzano Empire. Rumia is walking in the Alzano Imperial Magic Academy when she sees an injured person and heals him with her magic. She asks the man not to tell anyone that she used her healing magic outside the academy because it is forbidden. Sistine comes to her, and they are talking with each other. Glenn is running very fast along the way. He is about to hit Rumia and Sistine, but Sistine uses her magic and throws him away. Sistine apologizes for throwing him away. Then he comes near Rumia and touches her body, and Sistine again uses her magic and throws him away. The school teacher and principal were quarreling with each other. The teacher says that the new teacher is very irresponsible because he has come late on his very first day at the academy. The students are sitting in class and concerned about their teacher, who has been late. Suddenly, Glenn appears there as a new teacher. Sistine and Rumia are shocked to see him. They already met him in the morning, and they were not happy to see their new teacher. The teacher says to the principal that he doesn't have any talent. He just sleeps the whole day and takes rest. In the classroom, Glenn writes on a whiteboard for students to do their work with their help. Then a girl named Celissa comes inside and talks with the principal, who says Glenn doesn't have any experience and that the academy is of a very high level. Celica says she will take responsibility for Glenn's every action. She says he doesn't know about Glenn. He's very intelligent. Students realize that Glenn is not a competent teacher and his writing is also very bad. Students ask him questions, but he doesn't know the answer. Sistine asks Glenn to answer their questions, but he runs from the class after hearing the sound of a bell. In the changing room, all the girls change their dresses when Glenn comes inside. All the girls beat him well and threw him out. Rumia and Glenn are talking with each other during mealtime when Glenn comes there. He forces Sistine to eat more, and she gets furious. Then the girl who selects Glenn as a teacher thinks about how she convinced and forced Glenn to become a teacher. In the afternoon classes, Glenn doesn't teach anything to the class. Students cannot say anything to him because he's a teacher, but Sistine gets angry. She rebukes Glenn and tells him that she can fire him by asking her father. She then challenges Glenn to a duel, which he accepts. They come out of the class and students are very curious about the result. They think that Glenn will win because he's a teacher. She uses her spell on Glenn, and he smiles while looking at her. All students think that the teacher may have some ideas. When she casts a spell on him, he starts crying, and all the students are shocked to see him. In the next turn, Glenn tries to attack, but Sistine is also stronger than him. Glenn says she is not the winner, but it can be said that she is close to winning. He runs from there and falls, and Sistine thinks that the teacher is very foolish. In the class, Glenn is taking a rest and telling the students to study by themselves. A student comes and asks a question, but he doesn't tell her the answer. Sistine says he doesn't know the value of magic. Then Glenn says magic is not used for good deeds. It only causes the destruction and killing of humans. All the students there who come to seek magic will only kill human beings in the future with their magic. Sistine gets very angry at him and slaps him. Glenn is walking outside and he sees Rumia from the window, who is doing something. Glenn comes inside the room and asks what she's doing. She says she's making a magic circle, but it's not correct. Glenn corrects it, and the magic circle is complete. They come outside and Glenn tells her that he hates magic. Rumia asks what he did before joining the academy and how he got there. He tells her that he was a servant, and he has come due to a girl-like monster named Celica who lives there. Glenn asks Rumia why they all take magic seriously. She tells him that she wants to seek magic so she can help people in the world. She also tells him how she was rescued by a mage after she was banished from her home. She asks him to apologize to Sistine for his behavior, because she feels a bond with her late grandfather through magic. Sistine is standing near a window and is very upset. She wants to be trained by the best to reveal the secrets of the mysterious castle and complete her grandfather's last wish. The next day, Glenn apologizes to Sistine, and then he says he will teach them in a written way. He tells them about magic spells, and all the students are attracted to him because his way of teaching is very good. He throws away the book and says there's no need for a book. He teaches them practicality. He became a famous teacher among students, and Celissa says she already knew that. She talks to Glenn in the evening and says he's changed a lot from before. They talk and Glenn is very happy. Rumia and Sistine talk with each other, and Sistine says she doesn't like Glenn. He teaches well, but his actions and facial styles are very strange. Rumia says they are both very different from each other, and now they are best friends. Rumia hopes that Sistine and Glenn will also become best friends in the future, and Sistine says nothing will happen like this. Glenn reaches the market when he is called by someone. Then a person comes in front of him who is a member of a group. They use dark magic. On the other hand, all the students are waiting for Glenn. All the members of the group come into the class and they think that he's Glenn. They ask why he comes so late to the class. But they are the members of the group and ask about Rumia. They are very dangerous and they use their dark magic in class. They threaten a girl to tell them, but she doesn't. Then Rumia stands up and tells them that she is Rumia. They take Rumia and Sistine with them. They take Sistine with them because she talks before them and says she's also very beautiful. Glenn comes to Sistine to save her from a person. The person shows him a card and says he cannot use his magic on him, and then Glenn defeats him in hand-to-hand combat. The man is in bad condition. Sistine is very afraid and thankful to Glenn for saving her, and then they talk about the next plan. She tells Glenn about the situation at the school. All the students were hijacked. Then he calls Celica, and she says she is busy and she can't come. He tells her about the dark magic group, and she already knows about them. She says they can't do anything because the way to teleportation is blocked, which means they cannot teleport anyone there. Glenn asks to send the army to fight with them, and she says no. Glenn is very angry and says he will kill all of them. Celica says he can't do that because they are very dangerous. Sistine is upset that she is going outside. Glenn stops her and says there's very much danger outside, and they have to stop inside. They are talking about killing them, but the person whom Glenn defeats says they can't do that. The portal opens to the sand. Skeletons come out of the portal, and they kill the man. Then Glenn fights with them, but he can't defeat them and they run from there. Glenn tells Sistine to use her magic, and she uses it, but it's not so powerful. The skeletons are coming toward them, then Glenn uses his magic, and it is very powerful. It causes destruction, and he says he uses all of his energy in it, but he doesn't stop. Then Crimson Lion comes there and says to Glenn that he's more powerful and does his best. He looks very dangerous, and they talk with each other. Glenn comes to know from his way of talking that he has come to kill them. Glenn throws Sistine down, but she saves herself and thinks about what happened to her. Then he talks with them, and their duel starts there. Glenn attacks him, but it doesn't work on him. Glenn comes to know that he can't defeat him, but he's stuck there. Crimson attacks him with his sword, and it hits Glenn. He is close to dying, but Sistine comes. She uses her magic to remove the power of swords, and then Glenn kills Crimson. The master says he has a good plan, but he can't understand it. He dies there and Glenn is very injured. Sistine says first he could not understand, but later he understands. Glenn falls, says he wants to become a hero, and helps the people. He also commits many things that are not right and then faints. Sistine heals him, and he wakes up and calls Celica about his next plan. She tells him about the teleportation circle. Glenn learns about Rumia's location. He reaches her and sees she was kidnapped by her teacher, and she is shocked to see him. Glenn talks with the teacher, and he tells Glenn that he's not the winner. The teacher says that Rumia herself is a bomb, and Glenn uses techniques to save her. He uses his blood on spells to save her, because it's the only way, and it is very hard. Rumia says it is very dangerous for him. Then he falls there. Rumia tries to come to him, but she can't touch him. Finally, she gets out, and the bomb diffuses her. The person is shocked to see her, and she heals Glenn. Glenn kills the person. A queen named Alicia is waiting for someone. A commander and a girl come to her. They talk about the queen's daughter, Rumia. Alicia says it has been 3 years and she imagines that Rumia hates her. She says she always wishes Rumia would stay healthy and happy. Then Sistine and Rumia go to school, and all the students talk about the tournament at the school. Students say the one who wins the match gets money and a lot of respect. Sistine and Rumia try to persuade the class to participate in the match and tell the queen they will come to see the match. But all the students are very upset because they know that their opponent is very strong. Then Glenn comes inside the class and says all students will take part in the match, and he leads them. He motivates his class and they agree. He also takes part in the tournament. He remembers that in the office he asks to get some money, but the principal doesn't give it to him. The principal tells him about the tournament, saying that he can take part in it and get a lot of money, but he's worried because his class is very weak and the opponent is very strong. Then he sees some people quarreling with each other on the ground. Professor Hallie is also there. He doesn't like Glenn and never wants to see him. Hallie doesn't let them practice on the ground. He says to Glenn that his team is not so powerful. Glenn says he comes to win, and he will win the match. Glenn and Hallie claim they will bet their 3-month salaries on their class's victory. Glenn motivates his students and they make their best practice. They are very happy. Rumia is standing and remembers his past days. Her lost days were not so good, and then Sistine comes there and hides her locket because it's connected with her past. Then they both go for dinner. The day of the tournament has arrived and the queen is also present there. She's very excited to see Rumia there. All the students have been gathered in the stadium, and the tournament is going to start. Glenn thinks he will defeat her in March, but in the end he does very well. Glenn's student is in the best 3rd position, and he gets 1 point and is shocked. All the students are happy and give all the credit to Glenn. Then a student from class 1 comes there and says they will not win. Students start fighting with him, and Hallie comes there and stops them. The next round starts and there is good competition among students in classes A and B. A magician uses his magic on all the students. All the students are knocked out, except Rumia, who is left with a boy. Queen is very happy, and her mother says she doesn't want to see her closely. The final round starts, and the magician uses all his energy to perform his magic. At first, Rumia performs very well, but later her condition is very bad. Glenn asks her to stop because her safety is important. The magician announces that Rumia is the winner of the game. All the students are very happy. Two people are looking at Glenn. Glenn's is ranking high and everybody cheers them on. Albert and Riel are talking about Glenn. Riel wants to talk to Glenn, but Albert says they should complete their mission first. He says that someone may try to do something against Queen Alicia. A girl comes to Glenn and he says he's very hungry, and the girl is very nervous. Then Glenn thinks that if she becomes nervous, she cannot do anything. He uses his magic, turns himself into Rumia, and talks with the girl. The girl's fear is over because Glenn motivates her in the form of Rumia. The girl is from there and Glenn thinks about what to eat. Then Sistine comes to Glenn and thinks that she's Rumia, but he's Glenn. She gives him a sandwich and he eats it. The real Rumia also comes there and Sistine comes to know that he's Glenn. She punches him and he falls away. His condition is bad with hunger and thinking, and then Rumia comes and takes a lot of sandwiches for him. He eats it and likes it. Rumia tells her friend to take it for her friend. Glenn says the sandwiches are so tasty that only a fool can throw them in the trash. They talk with each other and are happy. Then Queen comes there and says to Glenn that she's happy to meet him there. They know each other because he is the royal guard in her palace. After talking with Glenn, she comes to Rumia and says she is very happy to see her. Rumia says she is not the one to whom she thinks she belongs. Rumia runs from there to the match, and the guards of Queen come and take Queen with them. Glenn talks with Sistine and says the sandwiches given by Rumia are very delicious. She says she can't see Rumia. Glenn tells Queen she wants to talk with Rumia, but she runs from there. Then he tells Sistine to handle the class until he talks with Rumia. Sistine agrees with him and tells him to go. Rumia is sitting in park, and Glenn talks with her. She says she wants to hug her mother, but she can't. Sistine's parents looked after her and grew her up. She tells her past story. She is a demon and she is getting out of the palace because she's a danger to everyone. Then Glenn tells her about his parents who are not good. He makes her understand and she's ready to talk with the Queen. Some guards came there to take her and give her a death sentence. They say that she wants to kill Queen, but Glenn doesn't agree with them. They ask Glenn not to interfere in their matter. Rumia says she is ready for the punishment. She asks them not to say anything to the teacher because he's not involved in all this. They tied her to a tree and were going to kill her, but Glenn used his magic and told Rumia not to open her eyes. A light flashes there, and the guards become blind. He takes Rumia with him, calls Selika and tells her about the matter. He says that they are going to Queen. Selika warns him to think before coming in front of the Queen. Glenn thinks she can't do anything and is also stopping them from going before Queen. Then Albert and Riel come in front, and a fight starts there. Selika says that the necklace around the Queen's neck is very dangerous. If they try to remove that necklace, then she will also die. The only way to save her is to kill Rumia. Glenn introduces Albert and Riel to Rumia. Albert talks with them, and after a few times, Albert kills Riel, and then Glenn comes to know that he is on their side. Albert says, "I don't want this to kill Rumia," and Selika also could not do anything. Then they make another plan, while on the other hand, the students of Glenn are very confused. The match is going to start, but he does not come back. Albert comes there and says they are friends of Glenn. He is busy with his work, so he sent them to complete his work. Glenn is still running and many guards are behind him. At school, all students do not agree with Riel and Albert. Then Suffering understands the situation and that he is in trouble, so she motivates the students. She says they have to play without their teacher. Otherwise, the teacher thinks that they are useless without him. Teacher Hallie is very happy and thinks they will be defeated because they are alone. Albert also motivates the students and they are ready. They are doing well in the game and their scores are equal to the scores of Teacher Hallie's class. But Teacher Hallie is very angry at them. Glenn is still running, and the guards are very afraid because they cannot catch Rumia yet. The grand round is going to start between classes 1 and 2. Sistine's condition is very bad, but she remembers the words of Albert and Glenn and is motivated. She uses her magic, and its impact is very high. Glenn's class wins the match, and they are all very happy. Evening comes, and it's time to distribute prizes among the winners. Albert and Riel go on stage for the Queen. On the other hand, guards catch Glenn and Rumia, but they are El and Albert in the form of Glenn and Rumia. Then all the workers come to know that these 4 people have made them fools. One of the guards orders them to kill them, but Selika saves them. Glenn says he believes Queen doesn't want to kill Rumia. That's why he takes her there. The guard says they have to kill Rumia to save the Queen. Glenn says he will save her and says not to say anything. Glenn thinks about what he has to do because time is short and they will kill Rumia. He asks her to remove her necklace, but she refuses, saying that it's her favorite. Then the guard is going to attack him, but the Queen removes her necklace. The guard and others are shocked that the Queen has not died even after removing her necklace. Then she hugs her daughter. Glenn says thanks to Albert and Riel for their help. In the evening, when the queen's going, she asks Celiaca to take care of her daughter. Celiaca tells her that she has given this responsibility to Glenn. Then Rumia asks Glenn how he came to know about her. He says that when she was kidnapped, her mother was very upset and gave this responsibility to him. They enter a hotel where the entire class is already present, and they spend their entire month's salary at the party. In the beginning, Glenn and Sistine are doing their practice, and Sistine is very tired after doing her training. She wants to take some rest, but Glenn says if she wants to sell the magic, she has to work hard, and she is again motivated and starts practicing. The next morning, Rumia and Sistine are walking to school and see that Glenn is upset, and they ask the reason. They are talking. Suddenly, Riel attacks him, and the sword is very dangerous. Sistine and Rumia were shocked to see her in her school uniform. Glenn tells them she came to look for and take care of Rumia. Riel says she will protect Glenn, and they are stunned. Glenn says she has come to protect Rumia, not him. Glenn asks her to introduce herself to the class, but she starts telling the secret to the class, and Glenn stops him. All the students in the class think that she is very cute. Glenn says she has no family, and she says only Glenn is her friend, and she comes there for Glenn. He is very shocked and says there's nothing more. Then Sistine shows her magic, and that's very amazing. Glenn says she is doing very well, and Sistine says this is nothing for her. Then Riel's turn comes, and all the students think she will do well because she comes from the royal group. Glenn tells her to do well because they all know about her. Then she uses her best magic, but Glenn stops her from using it. Then they go to the canteen, and Riel likes some cookies. She eats cookies in her meal with Rumia and Sistine. Other students also come to them. Glenn is happy to see and discuss with Cecilia in the library that RL will adjust in class very soon. Then Glenn announces in the class about a tour, and all the students are happy. They go on a tour and take some rest along the way. Albert is also there, and he changes his costume. He is calling the girls to buy Rhonda from him. Glenn also comes there and says to come to his real personality because he knows who he is. Then Glenn asks why he has come there. He says he comes for EL, and he wants to tell them that he is very dangerous and beware of her. Glenn is very tired, and the girls start playing their game. They tell Glenn to come with them. He plays with them. At night, all the boys are going to the room of the girls by map, but Glenn comes there and stops them. But they start fighting there. He's flirty, but after all, he is a teacher and fulfills his responsibility. After this, he sits near water, takes out his drink, and thinks that the day is very busy. Riel, Sistine, and Rumia also come there and start playing with water. They go to sleep, and when Glenn is going, Riel comes and says he left them. Glenn says he doesn't want to, but he has to do this. She says she can't live without him. Glenn stops her, and she says he's a liar. She says he cares about Rumia and Sistine. They steal him away from her. She hates them. Then the scene shifts to another place, and a woman is talking about a matter. All the students are walking toward the search lab, and Rumia and Sistine talk about Riel and think she would be fine. Then Riel falls, and they come to her. She talks with them very angrily. She says she hates them because they steal Glenn from her, and she never knows about them. Then she goes from there, and Rumia and Sistine are shocked at her behavior. Glenn comes to them and asks them not to worry. He says Riel is a bit upset. Then they reach their destination. The principal tells students about the very famous place. All students see the place, and an instructor is also there who tells them about the things and their use. Then they come inside the lab and see different species of animals. Then they talk with the principal about the topic of magic. The official tells them about the medical procedure to slice a human being. Glenn says this magic is banned now, and then they close the topic there. In the evening, Sistine and Rumia are talking, and then they see Riel there and go toward her. But she doesn't train with them and says they stole Glenn from her, and she doesn't want to talk with them. Then Glenn goes there and asks why she is so angry and why she doesn't want to talk with them. She only says that she likes him and they steal him. Glenn says there's nothing like she thinks. They both are very good. Then she runs from there and says she already knows what he will say. Then Sistine and Rumia ask Glenn, and he says there's nothing. She's just a little angry. Riel says it's her story, and they make her fool. She only loves Glenn and comes there for him. She is angry that they come into her life, make her worried, and tease her. Then she sees her big brother, Nai-san, who was killed. Albert's fight with Eleanor Chalet, who is very powerful. She uses her power, and Albert also uses it, but his power is nothing before hers. She laughed at her, standing there and saying he was going to die. The scene shifts to Rumia and Sistine, who are worried for Glenn, who hasn't come back yet. They say if he makes Riel agree to come back, it's very late. Then Riel's brother says get that he is back alive, and he wants to live with her, but she had to kill Glenn to make their mission easy. After this they can live together. Glenn says, but it's impossible. Glenn understands that he's a fake person, but RL doesn't hear him and attacks Glenn, saying she wants to live with her brother, so she does this. The scene goes back to Albert, who is fighting with a witch, and she laughs and says she has completed her work. Now she has to go back, and then Sistine takes a lot of food for everyone, but is shocked to see that Riel kills Rumia and tells her that she also killed Glenn. Sistine is very afraid and wonders how she killed her friends. Then Riel takes Rumia, and Sistine thinks about what she has to do, because Glenn is not there to help her. Albert says to give CPR to Glenn to keep him alive. Rumia is worried to hear about the death of Glenn and asks where she killed her teacher. Then Glenn wakes up and Albert tells him all the things that happened and tells him about Rumia. Glenn says he wants to thank Sistine, who saved her 2 times before, and then says he will not leave the people of magic wisdom. Then Albert says he has already warned him to beware of Riel. Glenn disagrees and scolds Albert. He says he knew that he was planning to use Rumia. He asks Albert not to involve Rumia in this matter, but Albert does not agree with him and wants to kill Riel. Glenn says they should clear Riel's misunderstandings first. Glenn claims that she is his student now. A duel starts between Glenn and Albert. When Sistine wakes up, she says that she can't help Rumia. Then the in charge of the base of magic wisdom comes there and says they need a person from the royal family. So they take Rumia there for sacrifice to complete their mission. Glenn says he is very ineligible, and they get there. The group comes to know about their arrival, and they send a mobster before them, but Albert kills him in his first attack. They go ahead and see another big monster. Glenn attacks him and kills him because he's very angry. Then the group member says they are very powerful and uncharged, and he goes to fight with Glenn. Then all the students come to know that the teacher and Rumia are in danger. On certain days, they could not go there because they might get stuck there and cause problems for them. They have power and Albert is also with them. They will win and come back. The brother of Riel makes her ready. He comes inside. Rumia gets happy to see him, and Riel's brother says she should fight with him. Then she fights with Glenn, and she makes her understand that it's a trap. Glenn says she has no brothers. Rumia says to Riel that she knows that their teacher is very good, but she does not hear them and Glenn uses her magic on her. Glenn tells her past story and how she's been created. And her brother is also created, but he dies. To hear the story, Riel starts weeping. And then the fake person sends many copies of Riel. He orders them to kill the real Riel, but Riel kills all of them. Then the fake person is afraid and says to leave him and start running, but Glenn kills him. Albert also kills Monster. Glenn is sitting with Albert on the beach and looking at the girls. Albert tells Glenn that Sistine resembles Sarah Silver. The scene shifts to another place, where a woman gives message to her grandfather about the failed plan and gives him other suggestions. He says she knows she can do whatever she wants. Then Glenn and others are eating dinner, and they are talking with each other. They come out to the balcony and Riel apologizes to Sistine and Rumia. They say she shouldn't worry because it's not her fault. The next day, Sistine is going, while holding the books of the mysterious Sky Castle. Celica looks and asks if she knows about the book. Sistine says yes, she will study it and get the secrets to it. Celica says her thoughts seem good. She advises her to be persistent with them because there's no benefit to just saying things. Celica is in a mysterious place and Emile is in front of her. Sistine is arranging books in the library, and Glenn comes to her and thanks her for saving him. Sistine becomes very nervous and shameful and starts to blush. Rumia and Riel come there and rebuke him for teasing her. She uses her magic, and Glenn tries to save himself. He is going to be hit by a car, but the person uses his magic and saves him. He comes out of the car and Sistine is shocked to see him. He introduces himself as Leos, the fiancé of Sistine. Glenn says his choice is not so good, and he has to change his plan. Then he tells them that he is invited there as a guest instructor. Sistine introduces Glenn to him, and he says he knows and hears about him. He is a good teacher, and she also wants to take a class with him. Glenn says he is not so special. Hallie is very happy and says a good teacher comes to their school. Then Leos comes into class, and all the students are happy with him. Glenn understands that he's a very high-level teacher. When class ends, Rumia comes to Glenn and says she likes his teaching style. Although teacher Leos did well, she liked him. Then Leos comes there and asks Sistine if she wants to ask any questions. She says no, and Leos says he hears that she asks many questions from teachers. Then she goes outside with Leos and Glenn. Sistine and Riel come after them and hear their talk. Leos asks her to get it, but she says no because she has a dream to someday master the mastery of Sky Castle. Leo laughs to hear this and says it's not very easy. Many people try to do this, but they lose their lives. She doesn't need to waste her life. She has a brighter future. She says she wants to fulfill her grandfather's dream. He says that if they talk about her grandfather, he doesn't achieve anything in his life, but she doesn't agree, and he becomes angry at her. Then Glenn comes there and they both quarrel, and Glenn challenges him for a duel. The one who wins the duel will get married to Sistine. All the students say Leo is very high, and he wins the duel. Glenn talks with Albert. All the students and teachers are gathered to see their duel. Teacher Hallie instructs the rules of the match, and Glenn makes fun of his talk. Leos comes to Sistine and asks her not to worry. He will win the match and he will never let her take Glenn. She replies that she doesn't like both of them because they use their own will. Then she thinks in her brain that it's good that she married Glenn because he takes care of her. She is shy standing there, and all the students say what she is doing. Leos tells his students to defeat their opponent, but his students start being defeated by Riel. She's very powerful. Then Leos tells the students to go into the forest and defeat them, but Glenn also comes in their way and traps them cleverly. No one wins this match, and Leo rebukes his students a lot, but Glenn doesn't say anything to the students. Then they both again start fighting, and Sistine stops them. She says she doesn't want to get married to both of them, and Glenn says he wants to marry her to become a rich man. She slaps him in front of all the students in the evening. All the students go back and Rumia rebukes Sistine for doing this with Glenn. Sistine says she was disturbed, so she decided to say sorry. Rumia says she wants to see both of them together, and Sistine smiles to hear this. Many people are dying and some heroes and Albert reach there. Leos talks with his friend and says he will beat Glenn in tomorrow's fight. Glenn is standing in the open sky and says Sistine looks like his ex-girlfriend Sarah, so he saves her from Leos. Then Sistine comes there, and Glenn says she looks like Sarah and tells her his past story about how he lost Sarah. He says now he can't lose her. He wants to marry her, and she can fulfill her dream. She becomes very happy and says that there's no one who gives importance to her dream. Glenn says he is also a teacher and knows how to handle his students. Then she says sorry to him for her slap. Leos also comes there and hears their whole conversation, saying to Glenn that he is very cheap. He tells his past story to Sistine to impress her. Sistine is very upset and she cannot refuse marriage. All the students in the class are upset and surprised why Sistine accepted Leos' proposal. They are also wondering why Glenn did not come. Sistine comes with Rumia and Riel, and students ask her about marriage. Leos comes there and says he wants to talk with her about marriage, so he takes her away. Riel is very angry at Leos. She says he looks like their enemy, but Rumia stops her from doing anything. Now they have no hope for his coming because their marriage is fixed. Rumia tells Riel that Glenn will come back, and she tells her about the last night fight between Leos and Glenn. Sistine tells a story to Rumia, and she goes to Glenn, who asks her to be with her. He assured her that he would come very soon. Rumia and Riel are sitting in hotels, and Sistine comes there in her bridal dress. She tries to look happy, but she is broken from the inside. Father asks them if they agree, and they say yes, but at the last time, Glenn comes there and takes her with him, making smoke everywhere. All the students are happy with his entry and takes her to a place and tells her that he goes for training at some place to fight with Leos. If he fights with him on that day, he will be defeated by him. So he practiced hard, because he was her friend and a part of her life, and now he is not. Then he says he came there to kill Glenn. Then they both fight with each other, and Sistine is very frightened to see all this. He says to Glenn that he is very ignorant and wants the Akashic record to rule over the world. Glenn fights very well, but the person takes many troopers from himself, and Glenn comes to know that he had to die there. Then they both attack him and finally succeed in killing him. The person falls and says that the next time he comes there, he will defeat them. Then he goes from there with his troopers, and all the students come there. Glenn carries Sistine on his back. At night, Glenn is drinking in a bar with Albert and says he defeated him but could not catch him. On normal days, Glenn meets with teacher Hallie and starts calling him, and he becomes angry. Then Celissa meets him and tells him that now he is looking like a teacher. Then Glenn comes to his class and starts teaching the students, and the anime ends here.